Don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did.
Wow. Just wow. If that short snippet didn't already tell you what kind of fireworks you're about to witness, buckle up. Because what Representative Brandon Gill did in this hearing is exactly what accountability is supposed to look like. No softball questions, no media spin, no carefully curated talking points. Just direct, factual, receipts-based interrogation of someone who is responsible for leading an organization funded by you, the taxpayer. What I love about Gill's approach is simple. He refuses to let powerful institutions rewrite their past statements, pretend things never happened, or hide behind, "I don't recall." He shows up with the receipts, cites the dates, and puts it right in front of them. This is the kind of oversight every American deserves to see more often. Today's video is going to expose contradictions, evasiveness, and attempt to detach from prior ideological claims, and Gill cuts right through all of it with precision. If you're tired of public officials or media executives trying to walk away from extreme statements only after they get caught, then you're going to love this breakdown. Before we roll the full footage, make sure you like the video to push it into the algorithm. Subscribe if you want more honest breakdowns with no sugarcoating. Turn on notifications so you never miss one of these deep dive reactions. And drop a comment telling me whether you believe NPR should still receive taxpayer funding after this hearing.
Gill.
Thank you, Chairwoman Green, and I apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm losing my voice here. Ms. Maher, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
You're not. That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half-decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, "Yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day."
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay. How much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to pay
to be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe
to the
it's
full extent of the
morally
law.
wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, "It's hard to be mad about protests," in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
do you think that a few years ago, NPR educated America about, quote, the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts? Do you think that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars?
I was not at NPR at the time, sir.
That's not the question, though. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I think our tax dollars that we use are to be able to provide a wide range of
So I'll
perspectives.
take that as a yes. You do believe that that's appropriate. Your health advisor at NPR also stated in an interview that, quote, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. Would you like to explain how fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat? That's an editorial at NPR.
I am not familiar with the editorial, and I don't believe that was published during my time here.
It's called Diet Culture is Everywhere. Here's how to fight it. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I think any reporting on health is an appropriate use of
You've
taxpayer
spent-
dollars, yes.
And you think that editorializing that fat is not unhealthy is appropriate?
I don't know what that article is, sir, and I'm not familiar with it, so I
This
couldn't
is
say.
fake news. Do you think that basic accommodations like doorways or seat belts represent, quote, latent fat phobia?
I don't have an opinion.
It's
on that,
also
sir.
from NPR. Do you think civility is racist?
No, sir.
No. Your outlet ran an article entitled, quote, when civility is used as a cudgel against people of color. That was on All Things Considered. Would you like to explain?
I'm not on the editorial side, sir. I'm not familiar with that story.
You talk about how NPR is news. This is editorialization, and I'll read it. For many people of color in the United States, civility isn't so much social lubricant as it is a vehicle for containing them, preventing social mobility, and preserving the status quo. This is garbage. I'll spend all of my time doing everything I can to ensure you guys never get another dollar of taxpayer funding. This is complete garbage. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. I now recognize.
Okay, now that we've watched the entire exchange, let's talk about what just happened, because this was one of the most clean, sharp, no-nonsense dismantlings of ideological doublespeak we've seen in a long time. Representative Brandon Gill came prepared, not just with questions, with timestamps, old tweets, direct quotes, and irrefutable receipts. And what stood out the most in this hearing? 1. Gill exposes a pattern of ideological flip-flopping. Every single time Gill read a tweet or statement aloud, Maher immediately responded with some version of, I don't recall. I don't believe I said that. My thinking has evolved. I didn't read that. I wasn't at NPR at the time. It became impossible to ignore. Gill was essentially showing the American people, these are not small slip-ups. These are patterns of ideological extremism that suddenly get scrubbed when it's convenient, and he forced those contradictions right into the light. 2. Gill's calm but firm tone amplified the pressure. What I loved here is that Gill didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need emotional theatrics. He didn't need dramatics or one-liners. He simply held her accountable with her own words. It was surgical. And that's even more devastating from a rhetorical standpoint, because the contrast between Gill's clarity and Maher's evasiveness became painfully obvious. 3. The reparations exchange was a turning point. Gill asked her directly, how much reparations have you personally paid? And boom, that was the moment everything crystallized. Because if someone is publicly supporting, tweeting, advocating, endorsing collective guilt or collective financial responsibility, the least they should be able to answer is what they personally have done. And her answer? None. That right there is why Gill's line of questioning matters. It exposes a gap between ideological virtue signaling and actual personal commitment. 4. Gill didn't let her redefine looting. Another key point. Maher tried to call looting counterproductive instead of morally wrong. Gill didn't let that slide. He went right back to the receipts. Tweets minimizing property rights. Sympathy for protesters damaging private property. NPR platforming in defense of looting. Gill showed that this wasn't a one-off slip. This was a narrative pattern. 5. NPR's taxpayer-funded radicalism was put under a microscope. From the genderqueer dinosaur enthusiast article, to fear of fatness is worse than fatness, to blaming civility as a tool of oppression, Gill exposes the editorial drift toward activism, not journalism. And Maher's constant, "I wasn't there at the time" response did nothing to reassure anyone that NPR has changed, or even wants to. 6. Gill lands a final blow, when he ends with, "This is garbage. I'll do everything I can to ensure you never get another dollar of taxpayer funding." That's not theatrics. That's a promise grounded in the investigative work he just demonstrated. And honestly, he earned the right to say it. 7. Why this matters beyond the hearing room. This wasn't just about one executive or one organization. What Gill did here signals a bigger shift. Americans are tired of taxpayer-funded institutions hiding behind ideological agendas while pretending to be neutral. Gill stood up and said what millions of people feel. If an organization wants to be partisan, fine, but not on the public's dime. 8. Gill represented taxpayers, not elites. And that's exactly why this clip resonates. He didn't approach this hearing as a politician protecting insiders. He approached it as someone asking the basic questions an ordinary American would ask. Why did you tweet that? Do you still believe this? How does this reflect